Welcome to St. Peter's United Church of Christ, where it is a privilege to be worshiping with you this morning as we are on life's journey. You are welcome here, and you are welcome no matter where you are on your life's journey. The people of St. Peter's unite to love God, nurture faith, and share gifts. And friends, please worship as the Spirit inspires you to sing and dance and laugh and cry and play and pray, and know that as we are together, we are worshiping God in common. If you're worshiping with us online, we're so delighted to have you sharing with us today. And we invite you to check in there. Let us know that you're there. And we'll be happy to receive any comments that you might like to share while you are online with us today. We extend a special welcome to those who are guests with us this morning, and it is always a pleasure to have you worshiping here. And please join us for coffee and fellowship immediately following this worship experience in the parish hall, which is immediately behind us here. And if you have busy hands, if you're a little person, or if you're just a person with busy hands, there are wonderful bags in the back where you are welcome to get things to do with your hands and to share in that opportunity with us today.
The final band book study, did I say that correctly?
Yep.
Okay, there's a lot of B's going on today. The final band book study is coming up on Monday, November 21st.
The 21st.
At 7 p.m., and you're going to lead that?
I am.
Again.
Looking forward to that.
Come if you wish, having read the book or not read the book, and just enjoy the discussion.
It'll be a tremendous opportunity. Also an opportunity for you to bring forward food. We've got the East-West Challenge going on for the food challenge. Last week, the East folks provided 42, but you're making up for it this week. Great job. And the West last week provided 138 particular items. So we're grateful for those. Yeah. Rah. Yeah, I'm told that occasionally church mice might migrate some of the food. I don't know.
I don't know about that either. St. Peter's, we have a beautiful building, do we not? And some of us know the nooks and crannies of this place, probably more than some of the others. Well, if you want to know a little bit more and see maybe a little behind the scenes, like the pipe organs and whatnot, you can meet our head of trustees, Dave Strauch, after the service back somewhere here in the sanctuary narthex area, and he will be glad to show you around the building and show you some of those nooks and crannies that you might not know about.
All the nooks and crannies and secret stairways.
Stairways.
I've been here since July, and I'm still finding new rooms. It's kind of exciting.
I get turned around when I'm in the building, and I've been here 8 years.
Yeah.
So
we're going to challenge you to pay a little more attention this morning in the call to worship. In the call to worship, which we're going to be doing momentarily, we invite you to pay attention because there will be segregation that happens within there. And actually, it's an opportunity for the men to speak and the women to speak at separate times. So be sure and check that out. A little thing different.
Yep. And we had a little bit of a change up. Your staff punted this week a little bit as one of our staff members, Jennifer, is out this morning. So there's no choir. However, we are very thankful and very grateful that Mackenzie Donnelly has stepped up and will be playing piano for us this morning. So thank you, Mackenzie.
Wonderful. Good. And we are excited that Patrick McCarthy is our guest organist this morning. Welcome, Patrick. Glad to have you with us again. And Greg Felton is leading us as our liturgist this morning. Would you please rise as you are able for the call to worship?
Please join me in a call to worship. Celebrate and rejoice, all you people of Christ.
For the Lord our God is doing a new thing.
The old order is gone. Everything is new. Illness, disease, and crying and mourning.
Shall be as distant memory.
Hatred and war shall cease from the earth. For good holds our future. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Please join me in the prayer of invocation. Great God, we long for the new. Refresh us with your Spirit and lead us anew. Renew our hearts with your hope and lead us where we might dare to go. Lead our eyes toward visions of your glory. Lead our hearts to new expressions of your compassion. Lead our hands to your greater works of grace. Lead our lives to touch the eternal wonders you hold. Breathe new breath into our worship, so our living may be to your glory. Amen. Albert Rios is the Poet Laureate of Arizona. He is described by the judges of the 2002 National Book Awards as a poet of reverie and magical perception, and of the threshold between this world and the world just beyond. This is When Giving Is All We Have, a poem by Albert Rios. One river gives its journey to the next. We give because someone gave to us. We give because nobody gave to us. We give because giving has changed us. We give because giving could have changed us. We have been better for it. We have been wounded by it. Giving has many faces. It is loud and quiet. Big, though small, diamond in wood nails. Its story is old, the plot worn, and the pages too. But we read this book anyway, over and again. Giving is, first and every time, hand to hand, mine to yours, yours to mine. You gave me blue, and I gave you yellow. Together we are simple green. You gave me what you did not have, and I gave you. What I had to give, together we made. Something greater from the difference.
Thank you, Greg. Any children like to come on down? Come on. That'd be a solid no. Good. I am a little scary, and that's all right too. No, sorry, Larry. Thanks. I appreciate that very much. So, do you know the story, because there may be some here who don't, of stone soup? So you're going to help me tell the story of stone soup. So there was a village that was very, very hungry, and everybody wanted to eat. And so there was an old woman in the village who had a giant pot. A giant pot. And she put it above the fire to get it to start to warm. And she filled it halfway with water. And she looked around at what else she had. And all she had was a stone. So she took the stone, licked it, it tasted poorly. She put it down in the bottom of the pot. And there the water started to warm. And soon an old man came by and he said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I am making stone soup." And he said, "Stone soup? What is that?" And she said, "Well, it's soup with a stone in it." He says, "That won't taste very good." She said, "You're right." And he said, "I have some turnips. I will bring them and put them in your soup." And so he went home and he got some. And just as he had arrived, there was another person who came down the road, and that person had potatoes. And so that person said, "I have potatoes to add to your soup." So he ran and he got his potatoes and he put them in the soup. And then a young girl came skipping by. And she said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm making stone soup, but it isn't very good yet. Do you have something to add?" And she said, "I will bring carrots." All right, we got votes for carrots. So the carrots soon came, and she cut the heads off the carrots and chopped up the carrots and put them into her soup. And then just then, a woman pushing a pram came by, and, "What are you making?" And she said, "Stone soup." And she said, "Well, what's in your..." And she talked about the potatoes and the carrots. "Well, I have some corn," all right? So we're getting a little starchy here, folks. We got a lot of... So she put in the corn, and that became immediately wonderful. And then a dog came walking by, and the dog looked up and sniffed, and the lady said, "Do you have something to put in the soup?" And the dog nodded. And so the dog ran off, and then a cat came by, and they let that go by. And then the bar owner came by, and he said, "What are you making?" And she said, "Stone soup. Do you have something to add?" And he said, "Yes, I have some wine." And so she put some wine in. And then the dog came back, and he had in his mouth a bone. And so she took the bone from the dog and wiped the dirt off and rinsed it off and then put it into the stone soup. And soon it began to boil, and it became wonderful and great and grand. And the whole village gathered together, and everyone in the village had stone soup to eat because they all brought something to share. Isn't that a great way to make soup? They even put some down for the dog, and the cat came and ate too. What a great blessing that was. Thanks be to God. Will you turn and greet one another with the peace of Christ? Peace be with you.
Children and youth may head off to Disciple Zone and Seekers. We have a long-standing tradition here in the church of a bake sale to help our adult mission trip. This year they will be heading to Back Bay, and so this is where all those bees come from that I mentioned during the announcements, because we have the Back Bay bake sale coming up. Yes. And to tell us the history of this bake sale, I can't do the bees all at once jumbled together, but the bake sale coming up next week to help the adult mission trip. To give us the history of that, I now invite Vivian Stogas to come forward and to share the history of what was the Brian Baker is now the Back Bay Bake Sale. Oh. Got it? Yeah, it's on.
Good morning. Some of you, I know, were here and remember Brian Baker, and some of you probably have no idea who this kid was. But back in 2004, Dr. Hodges, our minister, did a children's sermon, which was sort of like your Stone Soup one. He was talking about the parable of the talents and how if you pool your talents, you can do great things for many people. And Dr. Hodges challenged all the children to increase the money, the amount of money that he gave each of them. They were actually each given cash, $5, $3, or $1, and told to come back next week with their story. Well, Brian and his mother took the money and got ingredients for cookies. The next week, between the two services in the parish hall, he and his mother Barb walked through the group there and sold the cookies. And they made $66, which they used to buy underwear for the Christmas tree project. Then, the following year, he goes, well, we could have a bake sale and raise more money because the congregation could do the baking and the buying. That year, they raised $568. Then they went to the mission committee and talked to Karen Howard, who was chairman of the mission committee at that time. She's smiling. And you were on it too. Was I really? Okay, I guess I was there too. And anyway, the adult mission trips were being talked about, and how an expense that's hard to cover for the mission trippers is transportation once they get to the location. Because you generally need a van because there's people that need to be transported from where they're staying to the work sites. So Brian decided that's where the money should go, and they kept doing this. And it got to the point where it was moved to the Sunday before Thanksgiving because that's when people need all the goodies, not afterwards. And typically the donations soared to raising over $1,000 each year. When Brian went to college in 2015, his parents continued the tradition while he was in college through 2019. Now, we have changed the name. The Bakers asked that we drop the name, but now because the mission trippers are going to Back Bay in February, it is the Back Bay, what's the other word I'm missing?
Bake sale.
No, I thought there was another word in there.
No, you're not.
The Back Bay bake sale. My brain froze over during the pandemic, and it's not coming back. And so, next week, you have your chance to continue this fine tradition by bringing baked goods. Can I tell them I'm not going to include it? Yeah, sure. By the way, if you like sweets with your coffee, next week you will have to buy them from the bake sale. They are not going to be provided. And for those of you that have lost touch with Brian Baker and just would like to know what happened to him or where he is, he lives in Cleveland, works for an accounting firm, is married. Claire works at the Cleveland Clinic. They've been married for 2 years. And not unsurprising, they are very involved in the church, particularly providing for residents who need help. So the bake sale showed sometimes it's not a good idea to read things. The bake sale showed how taking one's talent can go much further when shared with others, and the church always helped to make that happen.
Great. Thank you, Vivian, for information about that. And next week, the Back Bay for Biloxi, Mississippi, bake sale, a lot of bees, will be happening next week after service, and all of you are invited to participate. Thank you. Thank you, Mackenzie. As we enter now into a time of prayer, I invite you to keep those that are listed in our weekly word email and those printed in the bulletin in your prayers this week. So with the joys and concerns on our hearts, let us now enter into a moment of prayer. Incredible God, there are many ways for us to say thank you for the blessings you have given us. So how shall we offer our thanks? Through song, through the giving of our abundance, through recommitting ourselves to your service, through helping and loving others? In all of these things and many more, we offer you our praise and our thanksgiving. Each day, each new opportunity is a blessing given freely to us, and for that alone, we are thankful. We are full of gratitude. Abundant God, we come today proclaiming our faith. We lift up in prayer the names and situations near our hearts. We lift up the ones named and unnamed, the ones that weigh on our hearts, the ones unresolved, the ones that are never too far from our minds. You know them. We name them each week in this place and each day in our prayers. These are the people, the places, the situations that aren't too far from our thoughts, our lips, and whatever our prayers may be, whatever prayer that sits on our hearts, we know you hear them and we lift them to you. We place these prayers of concerns and joys in your care. Guide us, O God, to be your new creation, called to bring hope, forgiveness, and love to all. Open our hearts to be agents of peace. You have a way of making things new, so make new in us, O God. Make things new in this world and guide us to be a blessing to others in this world, as you have so blessed us. For all this we pray with our hearts turned to you and pray together the words that you taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. There are many ways to give here at St. Peter's, to give back those blessings that we've been so blessed with. There is in the back, for those of you here in the church today, there is in the back a basket for you to place your offering there. Or if you're with us online, or even if you're here in the sanctuary with us, you may give online by going to our website, or even the old-fashioned way of sending it in via the mail. Either way, it is time to give back those blessings that we've been so given. Now, in the past few weeks, we've been talking about what we love about St. Peter's, and I am excited to introduce this young lady to come and speak to us. So I invite Josie Cohen to come forward to talk to us about what she loves about St. Peter's.
Hi, St. Peter's. I'm Josie Cohen. I'm 15 and I'm a sophomore at York High School. And today I'm going to talk to you about some things I love about St. Peter's. The first thing I love about St. Peter's is really just the building. It has beautiful architecture. I mean, if you just look in this room, the beautiful rafters, the roof, the exposed wood, everything is so beautiful. The stained glass windows, and I remember when I was a little kid, if I wasn't really understanding what was going on in the church that day, I would just look at the stained glass windows and like kind of see the stories that they all tell. And on the outside of the church, obviously our church has been added on to many, many times, so it's a mix of different architecture styles. But to give a little background, I'm in an architecture class right now at York High School, and so that's why I'm talking about this. But it just allowed me to really appreciate the beautiful architecture of our church. Like the outside has Gothic and Romanesque influences, but it also has that one area. I think it's on the side of the church that's more Normandy style, like kind of Tudor style with like the exposed wood on the outside. And I just think it's really, really cool to look at because it makes the place feel really special on a Sunday morning, and you can really appreciate its beauty. My second thing that I love about St. Peter's is the children's program, the SYF. To start off, I've been going to this church since I was really, really little. And but my favorite was when I was in Seekers, and we would get Cuppy's Donuts every Sunday. That was my favorite. And my sister, who's younger than me, was always jealous because she didn't get Cuppy's Donuts because she wasn't in Seekers yet. But and it was just really interesting and fun to be in. And I'm glad that we have the children's program because when I was that age, I probably wouldn't be able to understand the sermon. So I'm glad we have that. And I also liked playing hide and seek at youth group. We got to go around. Obviously, we weren't allowed in the sanctuary, but we were allowed to go around to kind of explore the building and play hide and seek. And I guess this really ties into the architecture tour that is after here, which works out perfectly. But I just really enjoyed that. And then lastly, I loved doing mission projects, like as a little kid, kind of, because I'm like, wow, I'm actually contributing something to the church. I'm contributing something to the community, the outside world. Like, for example, when we'd go to feed my starving children, we went with Pastor Amanda a couple times. It was really, really fun. And lastly, the last thing I love about St. Peter's is coffee hour. As a little kid, I couldn't get into the coffee hour room fast enough. I would always be like, I love Sunday school, but when is it going to end? Because I really want to go to coffee hour. And we have a great selection of food, and everyone's in there at once, and you can have some good conversations with people you wouldn't normally meet out in Elmhurst, you know. So I just really loved it when I was a little kid. And then now as I'm older, I can appreciate the people who serve the food every Sunday. I mean, they're making kind of a sacrifice to go out and buy food and serve it in there. Instead of coming in church, they have to stay in there. So I really appreciate that. And one thing, I had my first cup of coffee in coffee hour. And it hasn't turned into addiction yet, but it might soon. But I would just like to say that in my limited experience, the church coffee is very, very good. But just overall, I love a lot of things about this church. I mean, I've grown up here, and but I really just love the architecture and the youth program and coffee hour. So, thank you.
Thank you, Josie. Thank you very much. Beautifully done, Josie. Thank you very much. As you may have guessed, this was all leading up to this moment. This is the Pledge Sunday, where we invite you to bring your pledges. Hopefully you've been bringing them right along. We've gotten a large pile of them in the office already. But if you haven't had the opportunity to bring your pledge, you can mail it in, you can hand deliver it, you can bring it in the next few weeks. We're always delighted to have your pledges coming in. So thank you for everybody who has brought your pledges, and please keep bringing those in.
Now, will you join with me in the dedication of our stewardship pledges? Creator of all, the earth is yours, the world and all who live in it.
You have entrusted us with gifts, time, talent, energy, money, and asked us to use them to build your world. With thanks and praise, we respond to your call.
We commit our resources, returning our generosity, paying it forward.
We offer ourselves, our lives, our hopes, fears, dollars, and our hopes. We commit ourselves to love and serve wherever you call.
We ask your blessing on this, your church, as we seek to follow you with heart, mind, and soul.
Bless these gifts, our destined to an uncommon future, that we may multiply faith, hope, and love. Amen. Isaiah, one of the greatest prophets of old. Some people call him the fifth gospel. Some call him the fourth gospel, actually. It's a really powerful story written over 3, maybe 4 different authors, and it's a fascinating tale, probably written over 100 years and about 200 years or more after the events actually happened. So Isaiah is a great prophet of the Hebrew Scriptures and of the time from which we read. Powerful, powerful lesson for us all, and we are ever grateful for the book of Isaiah. Now, the folks were in exile, and was it Assyrian exile or Babylonian exile? Maybe you can help us with that at some point, but there's some debate as to whether or not it was Assyrian or Babylonian. But what happened was that an army came into the land, captured the land, and then put the people in the land under servitude. They moved into their houses, they took their food, they reaped from their crops. I'll get into that a little bit more as we go on. Not unlike what we are currently experiencing, or not we are experiencing, but the folks are experiencing in Ukraine. So that'll give you some perspective on how this is, except it went on for years and years and years, possibly 30 years, possibly more, certainly a generation. So that's the exile that happened. Now, Isaiah warned and warned and warned and warned, if you don't get yourself together, it's going to be a problem. And then warned and warned and warned and warned, now we're in exile, it's a problem. And then this part, which we're always glad to read, comes from the latter part where God is restoring the relationship with the people. And so it's a very, very exciting and powerful time and text. So from the 65th chapter of the book of Isaiah, beginning in the 17th verse, God says, "For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered or come to mind, but be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating. For I am about to create Jerusalem as a joy and its people as a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight my people. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it, or the cries of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. For one who dies at 100 years will be considered a youth, and one who falls short of 100 will be considered accursed. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall be the days of my people, and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain or bear children for calamity, for they shall be offspring blessed by the Lord, and their descendants as well. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together. The lion shall eat straw like an ox. But the serpent, you're supposed to go boo, shall eat its dust. They shall not hurt nor destroy on all my holy mountain. May God add a blessing to the reading, hearing, and keeping of this word. Will you pray with me? May the words of my mouth fertilize your planted seeds, O God. Amen. Not recently, I heard a story about a man who completed a suicide. When the family and others looked into the reason, they discovered that all of the issues in his life were good and were in order. There was no use of drugs. He was not an alcoholic. He didn't have secret sins to hide and was not diagnosed with some terrible disease, all the usual reasons for completing a suicide. So they went through his house and they found a note on his desk, written in simple language on a plain piece of paper. The note read, "Not a word of encouragement for 30 years. I'm fed up." The people here in Isaiah are fed up. They've been in Babylonian exile, happened in about the 8th century BCE. Generations probably suffered from this exile. They'd been in exile long enough. They said, how long, O God? How long must we be in slavery? How long must our babies die? How long must our future be in doubt? How long will foreigners be living in our houses? How long will our harvest be stolen? Life was cheap and death was plentiful. How long, O God? I'm fed up, came the prayer. They were in need of a new word, of a new hope, of a new opportunity, of a new place in life. And at the end of the exile, they were promised a fresh perspective. God says, you will be restored. You will be restored. It's dependent on your faithfulness and God's faithfulness. Actually, it's more dependent on God's faithfulness than our faithfulness. Professor Stacy M. Floyd Thomas says, our restoration rests on our faithfulness. Faithfulness to who God is, faithfulness to who we are with God. You see, the way that Isaiah tells the story is that it was the lack of faith, it was the impious activity of the people that drove them to exile. If you don't hold to the proper values, if you don't live a life of justice and peace and grace and hope, your world will collapse around you and you will be broken as people. Faithfulness is all key. Acting and living faithfully. Not just the faith you carry, but the faith that you live. Ever been to prison? I'm sorry, you didn't hear me. Have you? Yeah, I've been to prison many times, actually, yes. For the last 30 years, I've been in and out of prisons. It's a hazard of the job. But when you go to prison, it's important to know the rules. There are whole volumes written on how to go to prison and how to survive when you're in prison. There are actually prison coaches. Get that. There are people that you can pay to tell you how to do and survive when you are in prison. It's important to know the rules in prison, the rules written and unwritten. So let me give you a little help just in case. I mean, you never know. Do you? An ex-con in the California system that he had just been let out of said that among them there are these 8 rules for surviving prison. I won't go into all of them. Open your Googler, look at it, you'll be fine, you'll figure it out. But number 8 really intrigued me. He had this list, some of them were very, very practical, but number 8 was the one that intrigued me the most. He said, when you go to prison, number 8 is get God in your life. I thought that was fascinating. Get God in your life. You see, because in prison it's like out here. Once you know the rules, you know how to survive. You know what you need to do, what you should do, and what you don't want to do. You know the rules of the game. And faithfulness comes in those rules. Faithfulness comes in behaving as though you have God in your life, because you do have God in your life. You know the rules. Jesus was asked, what are the rules? And he said, love God and love your neighbor. Love God and work for your neighbor's justice. Love God. In The Waking Dreamer, Alan Brehm writes, in stark contradiction to the fear-mongers who seem to delight in painted God as a sadistic mass murderer. There are people who talk about God that way. The Bible insists that what God will do at the end of all things will be consistent with what God has already done. Create a world full of beauty. Assure a wayward people of the love that will never change, and set people free from everything that binds them. Set people free from the things that bind them. Some of the things that bind us were also the things that bound the ancient peoples. Everything old is new again. There's nothing new under the sun, right? And yet here it is. What's new? Verse 20. Verse 20 really startled me as I was studying this text carefully. I've read it over and over again, but this time it felt a little bit differently. Verse 20 is startling. No more shall there be an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person that does not live out a lifetime. Infant death. And then, as if we didn't get it the first time, in verse 23 it repeats, they shall not labor in vain, nor bear children for calamity, for they shall be offspring blessed by the Lord, and their descendants as well. They shall not labor in vain. We often read that as our work won't be in vain, that the work that we do, but notice where it's placed. I think the author's a little more sophisticated than that. They shall not labor in vain or bear children for calamity. Your labor of giving life will not be in vain. It will not bring calamity. In the time that Isaiah wrote, 1 in 4 children died before adulthood. Think about that. 1 in 4 children died before adulthood. That's 25%, if my math is any good. That's startling and terrifying all at the same time. That's horrible. And mothers frequently died in childbirth. And between the infant mortality and the maternal mortality, generations were shut off. And can you imagine the unimaginable grief that came? Horrible. Also binding us are wolves and lions. Now, I don't know about you, but when I step out of my door, I don't think about wolves and lions, do you? I mean, they're not generally coming to get me at any one moment. I don't think about being eaten by a wild beast in my backyard. There are mice. I can generally deal with them, sometimes, effectively. But in our contemporary context, it isn't the wolf with the teeth. It isn't the lion with the roar. But in our streets and in our schools, there is alcohol and other drugs that take a hold of us. Those are the lions and the wolves at our doors. And there is constant violence taking children. Now, we invite these beasts into our homes. Yes, we do. And they are the scourge of wild tongues as well. In our homes, there are wild tongues that set about all over the place. Are you ready for Thanksgiving? Are you ready for that uncle? Are you that uncle? There's a drinking game. And on the chart is, when will the uncle make the racist remark? And who will hold him accountable? Those are the wild tongues that come into our house. But we invite other ones too through our screens as they come to us and they seek to divide us. They talk about politics and COVID vaccines and education and healthcare and homelessness, with piles and piles and piles of disinformation, misinformation, false information, bad information, fake news, whatever that could possibly be. We invite them into our homes, and then we believe them until we actually get real information. These are among the lions and wolves that prey on us and devour us and divide us and destroy our families. Like me, I need a big button, big red one, I think. I think it should be red and it should have lights on it, I think. Glow. And when I whack it, it should reset everything. Don't you wish you had a giant reset button? Sometimes like 5 minutes after you get out of bed, I want to just... Wouldn't that be a great thing? Don't you wish we had a giant reset button? earlier in Isaiah, but in 3rd Isaiah it says, I will make all things new. God says, I will make all things new. This giant reset button is what God gives us. It's the thing that we crave, a chance to live life afresh. Yesterday was yesterday, tomorrow is tomorrow. We get a reset every single day. You can be more gracious, more loving, more caring each and every day. And when you hit the reset button, the great news is that you don't go back. You get to take your wisdom with you for who you are. Dr. Corinne Caveo talks about Isaiah as a reset. She says Isaiah 65, 17 to 25 invites people today to consider how our experience of God's holiness changes the world around us. We may not feel a great need to domesticate lions, but what would the world, she asks, look like if children did not die of disease or gun violence, if adults had complete access to quality medical care, if everyone earned a livable wage so that their work was not in vain? Isaiah tells us that this is the world that worship should invite to the world. What would a vivid future be? A future worth resetting toward, working toward. Who are you resetting even today to become? Who is St. Peter's resetting to become? Do you ever think about that? Who is this church becoming? What labors of faithfulness are we called to do and to become? What labors of faithfulness are we called to bring God into? How can we help children birth a brighter future? How can we help relieve the exhaustion of mothers? How can we help relieve the loneliness of fathers? When I ask people around here, what do you want more of in the church? You say, young families. So, what do those young families look like to you? Really, close your eyes. What do they look like to you? Who are they to you? Well, they're mom, pop, junior, and sis. Mom and dad married contentedly. Pearls, skirt, suit and tie, pleasant family home. Hello, neighbor. They look like some illusion of who we thought we were supposed to be when Father knew best. But the truth is, we're far more Ricky and Lucy than we are anything else. So that got me to thinking about families. Does your family look like mom, pop, junior, and sis? Right? You've started to put together your Thanksgiving list, right? Or maybe you're going to somebody else's table. How many divorces are already there? How many single parents are already there? Those are the realities of our world. So let me just throw this out there, just because, I like to start fires. What if we became a church for single parents? For single parents. There are plenty of churches for mom, pop, junior, and sis. But what about an alternative? In the United States, there are currently 13.6 million single parents. By the way, when I say single parents, you picture a male or female? Takes two usually. Single parents. 13.6 million single parents raising 21 million children. These are hardworking, resilient, loving caregivers who are also overworked and overstressed. Yes? So what if the church had a single parent night? What would that be? Let me tell you about a church that imagined a single parent night and gave it a try. They sent out notices to all of the community, usually on paper, And they announced that single parent night would be available at 7:30 p.m. Think about that for just a minute. And then, do you know what they left out? Childcare. That's right. So what are the greatest needs of single parents? I opened my Googler and I looked, what are the greatest needs of single parents? And you know what? There was this enormous list of to-dos for single parents. Be more organized. Spend more time with your children. Raise your children by reading to them. All of these things that these single parents make food prepping. Like single parents need one more thing to do. But then I found a wonderful list, and I'll give you a couple of them, that I think the church can think about. The first is to be a support system. Single parents need a true support system. People who will help. Not just I'm there for you, but being there for you. Doing things like getting groceries for the folks. Offering sick child care. So that the single parent can work. Though they should just take time. You're making an assumption about job. Like, babysitting for single parents. The second thing, a listening ear. A listening ear to hear the exhaustion and the challenges of what it is to be a single parent. The other thing that was commented on was that single parents want other single parents that they can talk to. Just somebody to go, ha, ha, ha. And the other parent goes, ah. And they know they understand one another. People who can truly relate and give effective strategies. And then here's the thing that single parents need that we as a church are pretty good at teaching. Self-forgiveness. It's a hard job. I'm a parent. Any of you? Self-forgiveness is essential. How can we help single parents have access to self-forgiveness? So, St. Peter's and y'all, all of us, we're resetting for a vivid future. We're pushing the button. Who are we resetting to become? Who is St. Peter's resetting to become? What fresh light breaking through these stained glass windows will inspire us to newness? God's faithfulness and our faithfulness are key in the midst of this. And again, Professor Floyd Adams, a house isn't a home. Get this. Now, this is God's house, right? A house isn't a home until a stranger feels welcomed and that the best meal wasn't the one that filled my stomach, but the one that satisfied the hunger and soothed the soul. We're given a gift. St. Peter's is given a gift. We get to hit the reset button. So how will we hit that reset button? How will we start God's vivid future? May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May God look upon you with kindness and give you peace. Amen.